The alarm bells rang through Kepler Station like angry wasps. Commander Thrixka lifted his insect head from his work screen, his compound eyes catching the red flashing lights that painted the control room in bloody colors. His 6 legs clicked against the metal floor as he moved toward the main display. "Report," he buzzed through his translator device. The machine turned his insect language into something the other species could understand. Lieutenant Zara 9, a crystal being from the Zephyrian system, turned her glowing form toward him. Her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Unknown contact, Commander. Single vessel dropping out of hyperspace at grid 77 Alpha." Thrixka's antennae twitched. Kepler Station sat in neutral space, a trading post where the 3 great powers of the galaxy met to do business. The Vex hierarchy controlled the eastern sectors with their insect fleets. The Zephyrians held the crystal worlds in the north with their energy ships. The Depth Lords ruled the water worlds in the south with their living vessels. Between them, they owned most of the galaxy. Humans were barely worth thinking about. They lived on a few small worlds, good for basic labor and simple mining work. Nothing more. "Identification?" Thrixka asked. "None given. The ship is not responding to our calls." On the main screen, a dot appeared at the edge of sensor range. The computer began building a picture of the vessel as more data came in. Thrixka studied the shape that formed on the display. It was long and angular, painted black as space itself. Strange energy patterns flickered around its hull. "Ship class?" Zara 9's crystal body pulsed with confusion. "Unknown, Commander. The design does not match any records in our database." Chief Petty Officer Sarah Chen looked up from her small workstation in the corner. She was the only human on the command deck, there to handle communications with human cargo ships and work crews. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her brown eyes were focused on her own sensor readings. "Commander," she said in her quiet voice, "that energy signature, I have never seen anything like it." Thrixka barely glanced at her. Humans were useful for simple tasks, but they knew nothing about advanced technology. Their ships were old cargo haulers with basic weapons welded on. The 3 great powers had been traveling between stars for thousands of years while humans were still hitting rocks with sticks. "Size estimate?" he asked Zara 9. "Approximately 800 meters long, 150 meters wide. Much smaller than our battle cruisers, but..." She paused, her light flickering. "Commander, the mass readings are strange. The ship appears to be much heavier than it should be for its size." From the water tank in the center of the room, Deep Singer gurgled in his liquid environment. The Depth Lord representative was a creature of tentacles and fins, speaking through vibrations in his tank's water that machines translated into words. "Probably human garbage scow," Deep Singer's mechanical voice said. "They pack their ships with metal scraps. Makes them heavy." The other aliens laughed at this. It was true that humans often carried strange cargo, filling their ships with anything they could trade for basic supplies. Sarah Chen frowned at her screen but said nothing. "Distance and speed?" Thrixka asked. 20 astronomical units and closing. Current speed?" Zara 9's voice became uncertain. "Commander, this cannot be correct." "What?" "The computer shows the vessel is traveling at 0.7 light speed, but that is impossible without hyperspace engines, and the ship shows no hyperspace signature." Thrixka's compound eyes focused on the display. 0.7 light speed in normal space was impossible for any known technology. Even the most advanced Zephyrian ships could only reach 0.3 light speed, and that was pushing their energy systems to the breaking point. System malfunction, he decided. Run a full diagnostic on the sensors. "Already done, Commander. All systems show green." The unknown ship continued its approach. As it drew closer, the sensors revealed more details. The hull was not just black but seemed to absorb light, making it hard to see against the darkness of space. Strange bumps and projections covered its surface, but their purpose was unclear. "Weapons?" Thrixka asked. "Unknown. The hull configuration suggests multiple weapon emplacements, but we cannot identify the type." Sarah Chen stood up from her station. "Commander, with your permission, I would like to try contacting them." "Waste of time," Deep Singer gurgled. "If it is human ship, they probably drunk or sleeping." More laughter from the aliens. Humans were known for their poor discipline and casual attitudes. But something in Sarah's voice made Thrixka pause. "Very well. Open a channel." Sarah stepped forward and activated the main communications array. "Unknown vessel, this is Kepler Station Control. Please identify yourself and state your business in this system." For long moments, there was only silence. The ship continued its approach, now clearly visible on the main screen. It was beautiful in a deadly way, like a knife blade made of shadow. Then the speakers crackled to life. Kepler Station Control, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran. Dominion Warship Retribution. Transmitting coordinates for rendezvous. Prepare for inspection. The command deck fell silent. The voice was human, female, and completely calm. But the words made no sense. Terran Dominion? Thrixka buzzed with confusion. There is no such organization in our records. Inspection? Deep Singer's tentacles writhed in his tank. Humans have no authority to inspect anything. Sarah Chen stared at the communications panel, her face pale. That ship signature, it doesn't match any human vessel in our database. Thrixka activated the reply channel. Unknown vessel, you are ordered to maintain your current distance and await escort to Docking Bay 7. Kepler Station is neutral. Territory under the joint protection of the Vex Hierarchy, Zephyrian Collective, and Depth Lord Imperium. The response came immediately, and this time there was something cold in the human female's voice. Negative, Kepler Station. We are not requesting permission. We are informing you of our intentions. You have 37 minutes to prepare for inspection. Any attempt to interfere will be considered a hostile act. The channel closed. Thrixka stared at the screen where the black ship continued its steady approach. Around the command deck, his staff looked at each other in confusion. A single human vessel was threatening a neutral station protected by the three greatest military powers in the galaxy. It should have been funny. Instead, something cold crawled up Thrixka's spine as he watched the sensor readings. The ship's energy signature was growing stronger as it approached. Whatever power source it used was beyond anything in their databases. Alert the defense grid, he ordered, and send a priority message to Fleet Command. All three powers need to know about this. Sarah Chen returned to her station, her hands shaking slightly as she typed. On her private screen, she pulled up every record of human ships and technology she could find. Nothing matched what was approaching their station. The black ship drew closer, and with each passing minute its impossible nature became more clear. It moved with purpose, its hull crackling with unknown energies, its weapons arrays powering up with a sound like distant thunder. Whatever was coming to Kepler Station, it was not the kind of human vessel they were used to dealing with. And Commander Thrixka was beginning to suspect that everything they thought they knew about humanity was about to change forever. The defense fleet moved into position like a wall of death around Kepler Station. 3 massive Vex dreadnoughts took point, their insect-like hulls bristling with plasma cannons. Behind them, 2 Zephyrian crystal ships hummed with energy weapons that could slice through asteroids. At the rear, a Depth Lord biocruiser pulsed with living weapons grown from modified sea creatures. Together, they represented enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Admiral Crixtal commanded the lead Vex dreadnought from his throne-like chair. His compound eyes tracked the approaching human vessel on the main display. It looked like a black needle against the stars, small compared to his massive ships. Human vessel, you are ordered to stop and prepare to be boarded, he transmitted. Any further approach will be considered an act of war. The black ship continued forward without slowing. Sir, his weapons officer buzzed. The human ship is within firing range. Wait for my command, Crixtal replied. He wanted to capture this vessel intact to study its strange technology. Besides, it was only one small ship against 5 massive warships. What could it possibly do? The human ship suddenly stopped. One moment it was moving at incredible speed, the next it sat motionless in space like it had been there forever. The sudden stop should have been impossible without crushing everyone inside. How did they do that? Whispered the Zephyrian captain over the communication channel. The stress forces alone should have killed the crew. Before anyone could answer, the human ship responded to Admiral Crixtal's demand. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the TDW Retribution. You are in violation of the Terran Maritime Code Section 12, Unlawful Detention of Human Personnel. This system contains evidence of human trafficking operations. Admiral Crixtal's antennae twitched in confusion. Human trafficking? What are you talking about, human? There are no detained humans here. Station records show 47 human workers currently held under illegal contracts. These individuals are being forced to work without proper compensation or the right to leave. This violates Terran law. Terran law? The Depth Lord captain's mechanical voice carried amusement. Humans have no real laws. You are barely organized enough to run cargo ships. Captain Vasquez's voice remained perfectly calm. You have 30 minutes to release all human personnel and provide full operational records for inspection. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action. Admiral Krixtal felt anger building in his chest. A single human was threatening the combined might of 3 galactic powers. It was insulting. Human vessel, you will stand down immediately or we will destroy you. This is your final warning. Negative. 29 minutes remaining. That was enough. Admiral Krixtal activated his fleet command channel. All ships target the human vessel. Prepare to fire on my command. The 5 warships turned their weapons toward the black ship. Plasma cannons charged with deadly energy. Crystal arrays focused destructive beams. Bioweapons grew hot with acidic hunger. Fire, Admiral Krixtal commanded. A wall of destruction launched toward the small human ship. Plasma bolts bright as suns. Energy beams that could cut through mountains and living projectiles that ate through armor. Enough destruction to vaporize a city. The human ship did not try to run. It did not even move. Instead, something impossible happened. Every weapon simply stopped working. The plasma cannons went cold in an instant. The energy beams flickered and died. The bioweapons fell dormant like sleeping animals. Across all 5 alien ships, every weapon system shut down at exactly the same moment. What happened? Admiral Krixtal demanded. Unknown, sir, his weapons officer replied, his voice shaking. All systems show complete failure, but there is no damage, no sign of what caused it. Engineering, report. Sir, the weapons are physically intact, but they will not respond to commands. It is as if they simply forgot how to work. Admiral Krixtal stared at the human ship, which had not moved during the entire exchange. No flash of weapons fire, no sign of any defensive action. His fleet's weapons had simply stopped working. Try the engines, he ordered. Get us out of here. Nothing happened. The massive dreadnought sat motionless in space. Engines not responding, sir. Same as the weapons. They appear undamaged but will not function. Across the fleet, the same reports came in. Every ship was dead in space, helpless, floating at the mercy of the small black human vessel. This is impossible, whispered the Zephyrian captain. No known technology can do this. Captain Vasquez's voice filled the silence that followed. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are offline. Your life support systems will fail in approximately 6 hours unless you comply with our demands. This is your only warning. Admiral Krixtal felt cold fear creep through his body. His mighty dreadnought, pride of the Vex fleet, was as helpless as a broken toy. Around him, his crew stared at their dead control panels in shock. How? He asked over the open channel. How are you doing this? That information is classified. You have 26 minutes remaining to comply with our demands. Admiral Krixtal looked at his dead ship, then at the human vessel that had somehow disabled 5 massive warships without firing a shot. Every military doctrine he knew said this was impossible. A single small ship could not defeat an entire fleet without weapons. But here he was, floating helpless in space while a human captain counted down the minutes. What do you want? He asked finally. Full release of all human personnel. Complete. Operational records of their employment. Compensation for illegal detention. And formal recognition of Terran authority over all human citizens within this system. We cannot authorize such demands. You would need to negotiate with our home governments. Then I suggest you contact them quickly. 24 minutes remaining. Admiral Krixtal opened emergency channels to all 3 homeworlds. Within minutes, his communication board lit up with incoming calls from the highest levels of government. The Vex Queen herself appeared on his screen, her massive form filling the display. Admiral, explain this situation immediately. Your Majesty, we are being held by a single human vessel. Our entire fleet has been disabled through unknown means. They are demanding the release of human workers and recognition of something called Terran authority. The Queen's compound eyes focused on something off-screen. Our intelligence reports are confusing. This Terran dominion does not exist in our databases, but we are receiving similar reports from other systems. Human ships with unknown capabilities, making similar demands. Similar reports? Admiral Krixtal felt his fear grow deeper. This was not an isolated incident. What are your orders, Your Majesty? The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Around her, Admiral Krixtal could see other high-ranking Vex officials whispering urgently. Comply with their immediate demands, she said finally. Release the human workers. We must understand what we are dealing with before we act further. Admiral Crixtail wanted to argue, but his dead ship reminded him that he had no choice. Understood, Your Majesty. He switched to the station frequency. Kepler Station Control, you are ordered to release all human personnel immediately. Comply with all demands from the human vessel. Commander Thrixka's voice came back confused and frightened. Admiral, I don't understand what is happening. How is one small ship controlling our entire defense fleet? Just do it, Admiral Crixtal replied. Do it now. As the minutes ticked by, he watched the small black ship that had destroyed everything. He thought he knew about military power. Somewhere on that vessel, Captain Elena Vasquez waited patiently for compliance with her demands, and Admiral Crixtal began to suspect that the galaxy was about to change in ways no one was prepared for. The conference room on Kepler Station had never hosted a meeting like this one. Around the large table sat the most powerful beings in this sector of the galaxy. Commander Thrixka represented the Vex hierarchy, his insect form twitching with nervous energy. Crystal Bright Zara 9 spoke for the Zephyrian Collective, her light pulsing with confusion. Deep Singer floated in his mobile water tank, representing the Depth Lord Imperium with angry tentacle movements. Across from them sat 3 humans. Captain Elena Vasquez had transported over from her ship an hour ago. She looked nothing like the humans they were used to dealing with. Instead of the rough work clothes and tired faces of human laborers, she wore a crisp black uniform with silver insignia. Her dark hair was pulled back in a perfect military style, and her eyes were sharp and alert. The 2 humans with her were even more unsettling. They stood perfectly still behind her chair, their faces calm and watchful. Both wore the same black uniforms and both had the look of professional soldiers. What made the aliens most uncomfortable was how healthy these humans looked. The human workers they knew were often thin and weak from poor nutrition and hard labor. These 3 looked strong, confident, and well-fed. I want to understand, Commander Thrixka said, his translator turning his buzzing into words. What is this Terran Dominion? Our records show no such government among human settlements. Captain Vasquez smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Your records are incomplete, Commander. While you have been focused on the handful of human colonies in your border regions, you have ignored what has been happening in the core systems around Earth. Earth is a single planet with limited resources, Zara 9 chimed like bells. How could it support a military organization capable of building ships like yours? Earth is one planet, Captain Vasquez agreed. But the Terran Dominion controls 47 star systems and over 200 worlds. We have a population of 30 billion and growing. The aliens exchanged glances. Their intelligence report suggested humans numbered only a few million scattered across a dozen primitive colonies. That is impossible, Deep Singer gurgled through his speaker. We monitor human space. We trade with human settlements. There are not billions of you. Captain Vasquez leaned back in her chair. You monitor the edge of human space. You trade with frontier colonies and independent settlements. You have never bothered to look deeper into our territory because you assumed we were not worth your attention. She gestured to one of her soldiers who activated a holographic projector. The image that appeared above the table made all 3 aliens step backward in shock. It showed a star system filled with massive structures. Orbital shipyards the size of small moons. Space stations that could house millions of people. And ships, thousands of them, ranging from small patrol vessels to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever built. This is the Sol system, Captain Vasquez said calmly. Our home system. What you see here has been built over the last 100 years. 100 years? Thrixka's compound eyes focused on the display. That is impossible. No species can build so much so quickly. Humans can, Captain Vasquez replied, because for the last 100 years we have been at war. War? With whom? Zara 9 asked. With each other. The silence that followed was complete. Captain Vasquez continued speaking as if she was discussing the weather. The human collective, the Terran Federation, the Sol Republic, the Mars Independence Movement, the Jupiter Consortium. Dozens of factions all fighting for control of human space. The longest, most destructive war in galactic history. She touched a control, and the hologram changed to show battle scenes. Fleets of human ships destroying each other with weapons that made alien military technology look primitive. Planets burning under bombardment. Entire star systems evacuated as military forces swept through them. We have been killing each other for a century, Captain Vasquez said. Every human government has had to become a military power or be destroyed. Every human colony has had to become a fortress or be conquered. Every human citizen has had to become a soldier or die. Deep Singer's tentacles writhed in his tank. But this would mean humans are the most militarized species in the galaxy. Correct? The most technologically advanced in warfare? Correct? The most experienced in combat? By several thousand years, yes. Commander Thrix felt his legs shake beneath him. Why are you telling us this? Captain Vasquez stood up and walked to the large window that looked out at her ship. The black vessel hung in space like a predator, its hull still crackling with unknown energies. Because the war is over, she said. The Terran Dominion has won. We have unified human space under one government, and now we are expanding beyond our borders. She turned back to face the aliens. For too long, humanity has been treated as a minor species, good for cheap labor, but not worthy of respect. That ends now. What do you want from us? Zara 9 asked, her light flickering with fear, recognition, respect, and reparations for the illegal treatment of human citizens. Reparations? Deep Singer's mechanical voice rose in pitch. Humans work for us voluntarily. They sign contracts. Contracts that trap them in debt. Contracts that prevent them from leaving. Contracts that pay them barely enough to survive. Captain Vasquez's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. These practices end now. Commander Thrix tried to maintain his authority. You cannot simply make demands of the galactic community. There are laws, treaties, established procedures. Laws written without human input. Treaties signed without human representation. Procedures that ignore human rights. Captain Vasquez walked back to the table and placed her hands on its surface. We reject all of them. This is madness, Deep Singer protested. You are one ship. We have thousands. Are you certain about that? The question hung in the air like a threat. Captain. Vasquez activated her holographic projector again. This time it showed a star map of the local region. Red dots appeared throughout the display, hundreds of them scattered across dozens of star systems. Each red dot represents a Terran Dominion vessel currently operating in this sector, Captain, Vasquez explained. We have been mapping your territories, studying your defenses and preparing for this day for years. The aliens stared at the map in horror. There were red dots everywhere, including several in their home systems. How long have you been watching us? Thrix whispered. Long enough to know everything about your military capabilities, your ship designs, your weapon systems, your tactical doctrines. Captain Vasquez smiled again. Long enough to develop countermeasures for all of them. She gestured toward the window where the disabled alien fleet still floated helplessly in space, as you have already experienced. What happens now? Zara 9 asked. Now you contact your governments and inform them of the new reality. Humanity is no longer asking for a place at the table. We are taking it. Captain Vasquez moved toward the door, her soldiers falling into step behind her. You have 72 hours to begin negotiations for new treaties that recognize Terran sovereignty over all human citizens and settlements. Treaties that grant humans full rights and representation in galactic affairs. And if we refuse? Deep Singer asked. Captain Vasquez paused at the door and looked back at the three aliens. Then you will discover why we spent a century perfecting the art of war. After the humans left, the three alien representatives sat in stunned silence. Outside the window, they could see human workers being loaded onto transport shuttles, free to leave for the first time in years. We have made a terrible mistake, Commander Thrix said finally. What mistake? Zara 9 asked. We assumed that because humans were peaceful toward us, they were peaceful by nature. Deep Singer's tentacles coiled with fear. What do we do now? Thrix looked at the black human ship that had defeated an entire fleet without firing a shot. We contact our governments and we hope they are wiser than we have been. The age of human subservience was ending. The age of human dominance was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from hundreds of worlds filled the great chamber on Nexus Prime, their voices creating a storm of fear and anger. At the center of it all, the three great powers struggled to maintain order while their entire understanding of galactic politics collapsed around them. Queen Vex Prima dominated the main platform, her massive insect form towering over the other speakers. Her compound eyes reflected the holographic displays that showed human ships throughout known space. The red dots had multiplied overnight, and intelligence reports suggested there were many more vessels that their sensors could not detect. Order, she buzzed through the translation system. We must have order. But order was the last thing anyone felt. The Kepler station incident had been just the beginning. Similar confrontations were happening across the galaxy as black human ships appeared, at trading posts, mining stations, and border outposts. Each time, the message was the same. Release human workers. Recognize Terran authority. Prepare for new negotiations. And each time, local military forces found themselves helpless against human technology. High Admiral Depth Current floated in, his massive water tank at the center of the chamber, his tentacles writhing with rage. We cannot allow this insult to stand, his mechanical voice boomed. Humans are nothing, primitive workers who barely understand basic technology. Yet they disabled your entire patrol fleet at Rigel Station, pointed out crystal-mind Zephyr 7, her form pulsing with nervous energy. 43 ships rendered powerless in seconds. Impossible technology. Depth Current's tentacles slammed against his tank walls. There must be some trick, some deception. Queen Vex Prima studied the intelligence reports flowing across her personal display. Our spy networks are reporting massive military construction in human space. Shipyards, weapon factories, training facilities, all built within the last 100 years while we ignored them. But we had observers in human territory, protested Ambassador Krill 9 from the Vex Border Command. They reported only primitive settlements and small mining operations. Apparently, we were shown only what the humans wanted us to see, Queen Vex Prima replied grimly. A new voice cut through the chatter. Perhaps we should consider their demands. The chamber fell silent. The speaker was Trade Minister Plex Alpha, one of the few beings who had regular contact with human workers. His small, grave form looked fragile compared to the mighty war leaders around him. Explain yourself, Queen Vex Prima commanded. The humans are not asking for territory or resources, Plex Alpha said carefully. They want recognition and fair treatment of their people. Perhaps accommodation is possible. High Admiral Depth Current's tentacles darkened with rage. Accommodation? With inferior beings who dare threaten their betters? Never. Their betters? Crystal Mind Zephyr 7's light pulsed with doubt. Admiral, they rendered our combined fleets helpless without firing a shot. How are we their betters? Because we have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years while they crawled in dirt, Depth Current roared. I will not bow to upstart primitives. His declaration was met with cheers from many representatives, but Queen Vex Prima noticed that others remained quiet. Fear was growing alongside anger. What are our military options? She asked. Fleet Commander Buzz Crick stepped forward, his datapad glowing with tactical assessments. Your Majesty, our preliminary analysis suggests that human military technology is concerning. Explain. Their ships appear to use power sources far beyond our understanding. Their ability to disable our systems suggests electronic warfare capabilities decades ahead of our own, and their ship designs incorporate materials and construction techniques that we cannot identify. But surely our superior numbers must count for something? Queen Vex Prima asked. Buzz Crix hesitated. Your Majesty, we are still trying to determine how many ships the humans actually have. Our estimates range from hundreds to tens of thousands. Tens of thousands? High Admiral Depth Current's voice rose. Impossible. Where would they build so many vessels? That is what concerns us most, Buzz Crix replied. We have identified at least 12 major shipyard complexes in human space, each larger than anything we have ever built. If those facilities have been operating at full capacity for a century, he left the implications unspoken, but everyone understood. The humans might have more ships than the combined fleets of all three powers. Queen Vex Prima was about to respond when alarms began, sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as automated voices announced, Priority alert, priority alert, unknown fleet detected approaching Nexus Prime. The main holographic display activated, showing the space around the galactic capital. At the edge of sensor range, a formation of ships was dropping out of hyperspace, black ships, sleek and deadly, moving in perfect formation toward the seat of galactic government. How many? Queen Vex Prima demanded. 67 vessels and counting, the sensor operator reported. Configuration unknown, but they matched the design profile of the ships that disabled our fleets. High Admiral Depth Current was already activating his command codes. Alert all defense platforms, scramble every available ship. We will show these humans what happens when they threaten the galactic capital. Belay that order, Queen Vex Prima commanded, "Your Majesty." I said, "Belay that order." Her compound eyes focused on the approaching human fleet. "How long before they reach weapons range of the station?" "Approximately 30 minutes at current speed." Queen Vex Prima made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Open communication channels with the human fleet. Prepare to receive their representatives. "Your Majesty," High Admiral Depth Current protested. "We cannot negotiate. Under threat." "We are already under threat," she replied. "The question is whether we choose to acknowledge reality, or pretend we still have the luxury of pride." The communication channel activated and a human voice filled the great chamber. It was the same Captain Vasquez who had humiliated their forces at Kepler Station, but now she held the title of Admiral. "Galactic Council. This is Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Dominion Fleet. I am requesting permission to address your assembly." "You are in no position to request anything," High Admiral Depth Current roared. "Your fleet is an act of war." "Our fleet is a diplomatic escort," Admiral Vasquez replied calmly. "Standard procedure when visiting potentially hostile territory. I am prepared to address your council with or without your permission, but I would prefer to do so peacefully." Queen Vex Prima looked around the chamber at thousands of representatives from across the galaxy. All of them were watching her, waiting for her decision. Some faces showed anger, others showed fear, a few showed resignation. "Admiral Vasquez," she said finally, "you have permission to transport to the council chamber, but you will come alone and unarmed." "Acceptable. Transporting now." A column of light appeared on the speaker's platform, and Admiral Vasquez materialized in the center of the galactic government. She wore the same crisp black uniform, but now it bore more insignia. Her presence seemed to fill the vast chamber as thousands of alien eyes focused on her. "Representatives of the galactic community," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. "I come to inform you of a new reality. The age of human subservience is over. We claim our rightful place as an equal power in galactic affairs." "Equal?" High Admiral Depth Current laughed bitterly. "You are one species among hundreds. We are one species that has spent a century perfecting the art of war while you grew soft in peace," Admiral Vasquez replied. "One species that has built the most advanced military in galactic history while you ignored us. One species that is no longer asking for your permission." She activated a holographic projector, and the chamber filled with images of human military might. Vast fleets of warships, orbital defense platforms that dwarfed anything the aliens had built, weapon tests that demonstrated destructive power beyond imagination. "This is what we have built while you dismissed us as primitive laborers," Admiral Vasquez continued. "This is what we are prepared to use if you continue to treat human citizens as property." The chamber erupted in chaos as hundreds of representatives shouted at once. But above it all, Admiral Vasquez's voice carried a final message. "You have 72 hours to begin negotiations for new treaties. Treaties that recognize humanity as a sovereign power. Treaties that grant full rights to all human citizens. Treaties that acknowledge the new balance of power in this galaxy." She paused, looking around the chamber at the faces of beings who had ruled the galaxy for millennia. "Choose wisely. The next time we meet, it may not be as diplomats." The final battle began at the edge of the Sol system, where humanity's home star cast its light on the largest military confrontation in galactic history. High Admiral Depth Current commanded the greatest war fleet ever assembled from the bridge of his flagship, the living dreadnought Deep Vengeance. Around him, 300 bioships pulsed with deadly purpose. The creatures that formed his vessels had been bred for war, their hulls grown from modified organisms that could heal from damage and adapt to enemy weapons. "Target the third planet," he ordered through his tank's communication system. "If we destroy their homeworld, this human madness ends forever." His fleet began its advance toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming numbers. Behind them came support fleets from the Vex Hierarchy and Zephyrian Collective, nearly 500 ships in total, representing the combined military might of the three galactic powers. They expected to face desperate human defenders protecting their homeworld. Instead, they found a wall of black ships waiting for them. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the TDS Absolute Zero. The massive vessel dwarfed even the largest alien dreadnoughts, its dark hull bristling with weapon systems that defied known physics. Around her, the combined fleets of the Terran Dominion formed perfect battle lines. "Enemy fleet composition?" she asked her tactical officer. 300 Depth Lord bioships, 120 Vex Plasma dreadnoughts, 80 Zephyrian energy. Cruisers. Total enemy vessels 500. Total mass approximately 47 million tons. Our fleet status? 200 active vessels. Combined mass 93 million tons. All systems optimal. Quantum disruptors charged. Singularity cannons ready. Admiral Vasquez studied the tactical display where red dots representing enemy ships moved toward blue dots showing her own forces. The aliens had more ships, but each human vessel was larger, heavier, and far more advanced. Open communications with the enemy flagship. High Admiral Depth Current's image appeared on the main screen, his tentacles writhing with battle fury. Surrender now, human, and we will make your deaths quick. Admiral, Vasquez replied calmly, you are attacking the sovereign territory of the Terran Dominion. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The only consequence will be your extinction. Depth Current roared. Humans are insects to be crushed under our might. As you wish. Admiral Vasquez closed the channel and turned to her weapons officer. All ships, weapons free. Show them what humans have learned about war. The battle began with a display of firepower that rewrote the rules of space combat. The human ships fired first, their weapons creating effects that should have been impossible. Controlled black holes launched from singularity cannons tore through entire formations of bioships. Quantum disruptors dissolved molecular bonds, turning enemy vessels into clouds of scattered atoms. Energy beams that drew power from parallel dimensions cut through the thickest armor like it was paper. The alien fleet returned fire with everything they had. Plasma bolts hot as stars, living projectiles that burrowed through hulls, crystal beams that could slice asteroids in half. But the human ships barely seemed to notice. Their dark hulls absorbed energy weapons without damage. Their armor regenerated faster than the aliens could destroy it. And their defensive systems turned incoming projectiles against each other, creating spectacular explosions in empty space. High Admiral Depth Current watched in growing horror as his magnificent fleet was systematically destroyed. His bioships, which had conquered dozens of star systems, were being torn apart by weapons he could not understand. How are they doing this? He demanded. Unknown, Admiral, his tactical officer replied. Their technology appears to be centuries beyond our own. That is impossible. They were primitive workers 50 years ago. But the evidence filled his screens. Human ships moved with perfect coordination, suggesting either a hive mind or computer systems far beyond alien capability. Their weapons demonstrated mastery of physics that the galactic powers had barely begun to explore. And their tactics showed the ruthless efficiency of a species that had spent a century at war. Admiral, his communications officer gurgled urgently. We are receiving surrender requests from 17 ships. No surrender, Depth Current roared. Fight to the death. But his own flagship shuddered as human weapons found their mark. The living hull screamed in pain as quantum disruptors began dissolving its molecular structure. On the bridge of the Absolute Zero, Admiral Vasquez watched the battle unfold with professional satisfaction. Her tactical display showed the alien fleet being steadily destroyed. Red dots vanished one by one as human weapons found their targets. Enemy fleet strength at 60% and falling, her tactical officer reported. No human vessels lost. Maintain pressure, but prepare to accept surrenders. Our goal is victory, not genocide. Around the Sol system, the battle raged for 3 more hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. Human military technology forged in a century of total war proved superior in every category. Their ships were faster, stronger, and better armed. Their tactics were more flexible and adaptive. Their crews were more experienced and better trained. Most importantly, their will to win was absolute. When High Admiral Depth Current's flagship finally broke apart under sustained fire, the remaining alien ships began to surrender. Admiral Vasquez accepted their surrenders but made her terms clear. They would be held as prisoners until new treaties could be negotiated. The Battle of Sol lasted only 6 hours, but its effects would reshape the galaxy forever. 3 days later, Admiral Vasquez stood in the rebuilt council chamber on Nexus Prime. But this time she was not alone. Behind her sat representatives from 47 human worlds, taking their places among the galactic powers for the first time in history. The surviving alien leaders looked very different from the proud beings who had once dismissed humanity as primitive workers. Queen Vex Prima's compound eyes were dull with defeat. Crystal Mine Zephyr 7's light flickered weakly. The new Depth Lord representative, Shallow Current, barely moved in his tank. The Terran hegemony is prepared to accept your surrender, Admiral Vasquez announced. Our terms are simple. full recognition of human sovereignty over all human citizens and territories, immediate cessation of all practices involving forced human labor, reparations for past violations of human rights, and acceptance of humanity as the dominant military power in this galaxy. Dominant? Queen Vexprima's voice was barely a whisper. You would rule us? We would lead, Admiral Vasquez corrected. The galaxy needs order, and we are the only power capable of maintaining it. Your species will retain control of your internal affairs, but interspecies relations will be managed by the hegemony. It was not a negotiation. It was a statement of fact. Over the following months, human ships spread throughout known space, carrying the black and silver banner of the Terran hegemony. Resistance was brief and unsuccessful. The few alien fleets that tried to fight were destroyed so quickly that other systems surrendered without firing a shot. The age of alien dominance was over. Admiral Vasquez, now Supreme Commander of the Terran hegemony, stood in her new office, overlooking the rebuilt Nexus Prime. Through the massive windows she could see human ships patrolling the space around the galactic capital. Construction crews were building new defensive platforms designed with human technology. Her aide, Captain Chen from the old Kepler station, approached with the daily reports. Supreme Commander, we have received surrender documents from the last holdout systems in the Outer Rim. Total galactic compliance is now at 97%. And the remaining 3%? Uninhabited systems or species too primitive for space travel. They pose no threat. Admiral Vasquez nodded, studying the holographic display that showed human influence spreading across the galaxy like ink in water. What is the status of the integration programs? Proceeding ahead of schedule. Former alien military personnel are adapting well to hegemony service. Trade routes are reopening under human protection. Most importantly, human workers throughout the galaxy have been freed from illegal contracts. Good. Admiral Vasquez touched a control, and the display changed to show Earth. Her homeworld looked peaceful from space, but she knew the orbital platforms and defense grids that now surrounded it. Humanity would never again be vulnerable to alien attack. Supreme Commander, Captain Chen asked quietly, do you think we did the right thing? Admiral Vasquez considered the question. In establishing human dominance, they had fought a war that destroyed thousands of alien ships and killed millions of beings. They had overthrown governments that had ruled for millennia. They had changed the fundamental structure of galactic civilization, but they had also freed billions of human workers from exploitation. They had established humanity as a major power instead of a minor curiosity. They had brought order to a galaxy that had been dominated by the strong preying on the weak. Captain, she said finally, for too long humanity was ignored, exploited, and dismissed. We were considered useful for labor but not worthy of respect. That has changed forever. She turned back to the window, watching human ships patrol the space lanes that had once been controlled by alien powers. The galaxy assumed we were weak because we were peaceful toward them.